morning. And thank you, Reb Zisha, again for starting it again. The Shiurim. So, Pilanim Sheches. I want to discuss a Nikida in this shul, which a couple of people had asked me a while ago. Once the government, the local Ráshon, shut down our mikveh, which we used to go into the mikveh outside, and come up and go to daven. So now, if you want to go to the mikveh in the morning before davening, or Erev Shabbos, if you want to go to the mikveh, you have to pass through the Medrash to go down to the mikveh. So the question was, can we do it? What's the heter of going through a shield in order to go to the mikveh? It is a kapandre. Now, if you look in the first source, the Gemara in the Mishnah Megillah, Daf Chof Ches Amud Aleph, writes, Oidu Merabida, Beis HaKnesset Shechorav, Beis HaKnesset, which basically was destroyed, we don't use it anymore. Ein Mespidim Besoiche. You cannot make a hesped inside. You cannot make a kapandarya, which we'll see soon. Rashi is going to explain what it is. Why? Because the pasuk says, so it is still, Shamoisi means, I will make your shuls vist. What is it called? Nobody will go in. Shamem.
Desolate.
Huh?
Desolate.
Okay. So this is what the pasuk says. So Chazal Darshan, Vashamoy says Mikdashaychem, the Torah calls it still Mikdashaychem. That means it has a kedusha even when it's desolate. What he said. Price is hard to say it, but I can point out. Then the kid said what it is. Even when it's shumaim, has a kedusha. So therefore, you cannot do all kind of things which you do outside. You cannot do in a shul, even though if you don't use it. Now the Gemara says, "My kapandarya." What does it mean, a kapandarya? Umaruva kapandarya kishmo. What kind of kapandarya means a kapandarya? So the Gemara asks, "Okay, what does it mean? My kishma." Avdem zog the Gemara, "Come on, the Umar da mekifia idra ile ba zog trashe mekatzer lich derich Beis HaKnesset." A person wants to go into 770. He goes into 770 on Eastern Parkway because it rains. He wants to come out on the door on Union, which on the Mechilas, which they opened, whatever. So he wants to go out, come out, make it through. He wants to make a shortcut in shul. That's a kapadia. In the Gemara, even if it's a Beis Medrash, which is chorav, you cannot do that. You cannot go through the Beis Medrash to make a kapadia. Zukt of them Rebbe Via. Rebbe Via says, "Im hoy shvil meikure mitter." If, for instance, there was a pathway on a empty property, and then they built over there the shul. So since it's a pathway which people used to use, then even though you used the shul, you made a shul, you could come in from one side and go out the other side. If a person goes into shul not to make it a kamarani, what means a person goes into daven, or a person goes into do something at bar mitzvah and a shul to learn, then he could go out the other side. It's not a problem. Like the Gemara says first, if a person goes into Beis Medrash, he goes in from this door, then he has no problem to go out on the other door, although he makes a shortcut. Shneimar, we'll see some Rishonim say it's kedaya zoitzitin. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, when the people used to come to the Hashem and Beis Hamikdash, b'mayadam. Habuder Shar Tzufan, the person who came in Shar Tzufan, the people came in Shar Tzufan, Lishtach voice, used their Shar Negev. So we saw Faket Besmingdish, that was the side that used to come in one side and used to go on the other side. So therefore, the person goes into shul, then he has no problem to go out the other side. That's not a kapandarya. So that's the Gemara, that's the Mishnah, the Gemara which we on the Sigi is based. Now let's see the Rambam. Very interesting Rambam, as the Rambam writes. The Rambam writes 3 halachas in this halacha. In Peirig Yidalem Heliches Tefillah, halacha vuf. So the Rambam like this. Bote Keneisi es Bote Medrushas, Aina Hagmem Kalas Rosh. There's no way you could have Kalas Rosh in a shul. It's not a place to hang out. It's not a place to socialize. Aber es Mensch gemacht sie da von Beis HaKnesset. The Rambam adds on also Beis HaMedrash. Ganz choik v'hitel, sicha b'tayle. You don't play bingo in a shul. Blo sicha b'tayle, v'ayin oichle mem, v'ayin choyse mem, v'ayin chnusim b'chama nachama. Okay, that's the Rambam halacha vov. Now, halacha ches, the Rambam writes like this. Hoyu l'bayis HaKnesses and l'bayis HaMedrash shnei psuchim. There were two doors in the basic nest. Like this shul, again, has one over here on this side, one on the other side, other street. So the Rambam, lo yasenu kapandarya. You cannot make it a kapandarya shortcut. What does it mean? You come in on one door, you want to shorten the way. You cannot do that, because you cannot go into a shul only for the var mitzvah. That's halacha ches.
This is a whole question.
Then comes the halacha tes. Halacha tes, was the Rambam writes like this. Somebody needs to go in the Beis HaMedrash, not for the tefillah. He needs to go in the Beis HaMedrash, he wants to call someone, as a friend over there. He wants to ask some question for somebody who is in shul. So the Rambam Yikunas, he should go into shul, he should read a little bit, or Yomer Shmi, or he should say a pasik, and then he should go over and ask that guy what he wants to ask. Or at least he comes into shul, not for his own reason, he goes into for likras. Person should not go into Beis HaMedrash only because he's only used. That means to go to speak with a friend. If he doesn't know how to learn, which once upon a time that was the common thing. You should go to a child and say, tell me a pasuk which you just learned, like a Haman did for the children which learned with matche. So therefore, even if you don't know how to learn, at least you have something to do with learning. Or you should stay a little bit in the Beis HaMedrash. Then you should go out. I was talking if you sit in the Beis HaMedrash. So the Rambam makes yeshiva shama iska mitzvah. To sitting in a shul, even if not learning, just a sitting over there is auch a mitzvah. As he said before, sicha and but sitting itself, Shnema, the Pasuk says, Asha Yoshev V'Seichel. Asha Voil is Yoshev V'Seichel. It's a beautiful thing to sit in Beis HaKnesses. That's halacha tes. Then comes halacha yid. Misha nechnas lispal or likra is a person which goes into shul to daven or to learn. Mittel atzayz mePesach shekenegda. You could come into one door, sit down and learn the daven, and go out the other door, as we mentioned, the Gemara says, that was the way how you do it in Beis HaMikdash. Now, it's very interesting to see what the Rambam did. The Rambam started the halacha of kapandarya. That's halacha ches. The Rambam says you cannot make a kapandarya, you cannot make shortcuts. Then, halacha yid, he goes, if a person went in to a shul, could go out other side, it's not a problem, because it's not a kapandarya. And in the middle, between halacha ches and halacha yid, he puts in a different halacha. He slices the halacha of kapandarya, which we saw in Gemara, goes right next to it, and he puts in a different halacha. What's the halacha? That if you go into a shul to call your friend, don't go in just like for your own sake. Go in order to learn something, say a bracha, say something, then it's not a problem. So the Rambam starts, you cannot make a shortcut a shul. Then it says if you're going in, separate halacha, you could go in, not making kapandarya, not a shortcut, just going into your shul to call someone, you should at least sit or daven something. Then it comes back to halacha kapandarya, which says the halacha that if you going into daven, you could go in one side, you go on the other side. That's the Rambam, what the Rambam did. That's not the way how it's in Gemara. Not only it's not in the Gemara, you look at the Shechorach basically brings down this halacha in Sima Kifni in Aleph, in the Beis HaKnesses, and the halacha makes like the Gemara, not like the Rambam. Quote, I brought down the Shechorach. But the Gnesis with the Medrush is ein Hagim Kalas Rosh. That's the first halacha in Rambam, because the Bechal, the Shechorach, whenever he can, he goes according to the Rambam. He brings down the Rosh and the Rambam. But over here he changes. It's not like this. Ein Hagim Kalas Rosh like the Rosh and the Rambam in halacha Avov. V'im tzurich lekunas b'hem letzarcha kedalikras le'odam. Then say a word. That's halacha tes which the Rambam sliced in kapandarya. So that's the second halacha. If you need to go into, for some reason, sit down and learn something, say something apostolic, and then you could call that person. Then it says, zog the Shechnuch weiter in Sif Hai, Hoila by Sekneses Shnei Psocham, if a shul has 2 doors, lo yikunas bepesach zeh, v'yetzi bepesach zeh, that means don't make it a shortcut, because you're making a pandaria. And then he brings down the lucha, if there was a path, like the Rambam brings down, and then he says, Vim lo nechnes bo itchile krelet katzdarke, megman, ikish nechnes bo lispalel, mittel etzais kregeze. So the Shechnuch Taka did not go according to Rambam. He took out the halacha of the Rambam of halacha tes, which was in the middle of halacha ches and halacha yid. He put it like the side there is the Gemara. First, you cannot make the kalas rosh in the shul. Then it says you can't go into shul stump just in vain. Go in and learn something. Then comes the halacha of kabandari, shortcuts. The Rambam said that which if you're going into one side, you cannot go to the other side. And if you look down and learn something, then it's okay. So we see the Rambam changed the halacha. Comes the Or Samayich, the famous commentary of the Rambam, the Or Samayich, and his Madaik from the Rambam that we see from the Rambam a very interesting thing. That if a person goes into shul to call someone, he wants to call a friend or a child, wants to bring out the child from there, he could go in and say a pasik or say learn something, and that's fine, and he can do whatever he needs to do. But that's only if you're going into shul, it shouldn't be in vain of your own tzarachim. Then it helps to say a pasik. But if you're going in for kapandad, if you want to make a shortcut, it will not help to going in on one side, sitting down or saying a pasik, and going on the other side, because sof of this halucha that helps this nicht. It helps saying a pasik, which basically going into shul and sitting down. That's only helps when you're going into a shul in vain for your own purpose. Then it helps to say a pasuk. So that takes it away from it's not your purpose. You went in to learn. But when you're going in to make a shortcut, it won't help sitting down and staying in the shul. Because that's safkasov. You make a shortcut and you cannot do it. And it's madak from the Rambam. That's why the Rambam sliced the halacha. The Rambam wanted to say only the halacha of saying a pasuk will apply to when you're going in. It shouldn't be in vain. But it doesn't apply to kabbalah. It's 2 separate things. And the only way, if you're coming into shul to daven, after that we can go out. But coming in to go through and sitting down, that won't help. Which, by the way, the Welt feels sich ja so. The Welt feels sich so when you're going in the shul and you want to go out all the way. Okay. But I can all see. But that's the shittas of Samayich, which is Madaik, very nice from the Rambam, which from the Rambam you can say taka like this. But by the way, the Shechnuch and the Shechnuch taka changed the halacha back again. But the Samayich is Madaik azoi that you cannot be Michael. And at some poskim bring down this or Samayich and rely on it. And even before the Samayich, somebody else. The Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Heichel in Halicha Shloima al Tefillah, he says you should be machmeh with the Rambam, and you cannot go into a shul. Even so, it comes to such a case. If coming into shul, you want to go down going down to the mikveh. It won't help even sitting down and saying a pasik because it's a kapandari. Afterwards, you're making it a shortcut. So therefore, you have a problem. And according to the Rambam, according to the Samayich, according to Shlomo Zalman, the Shlomo Zalman says ruah lahachmeh. It's Gdali be a machmed or Samayich. So, and the truth is, way before the Samayich, I saw in one of the Svarim, a Svadish Sefer, it's called Chedishisher Mishched Dervis, Ravasa, and he writes down, he says the same claim thing, that it won't help somebody coming going into shul and going out the other side will not help sitting down and saying a pasik or learning because it is a kapandaria. And it's asr. So we have some points who say like this. But the Mishnah Berurah and Bir Alocha and Kifni and Aleph, zug the Mishnah Berurah of the Shechnuch, which is the Shechnuch says if it has 2 doors, you couldn't make a shortcut. The Mishnah Berurah adds on, Imloi sheyikra o yishum sham. So the Mishnah Berurah gives us already a hope. He's Medaik, Pashas is Medaik from the Shechnuch. Since the Shechnuch changed his Alocha like the Rambam, so according to the Mishnah Berurah, that even such a case, if you want to coming here and going out other ways, you want to do it for that purpose, if you sit down and you say a pasik, you say kapitel tilam, or you say a lane step as a Mishnah, that shall be fine. And also, this is the Mishnah Berurah. In Lamasa, spätig Achronim bring that Ben Ish Chai in Pasha Vayikru, Ben Ish Chai Bachlal is a Sefer Halachos. Now people think Ben Ish Chai has a drush, has all, but Ben Ish Chai itself is a halachic Sefer. So over there also it brings on all the halachas of what you could do in a shul, and you cannot make a shortcut. And then it says, V'chein im nechnas b'pesach zeh. If he comes into one door, V'lumad b'baisek nesas mizmet tilam, and he said the kapitel tilam, or he learned the kapitel tilam, shura l'tzayid pesach shiny, then you can go out. Because they learn basically that when the Gemara says that if you're going into daven, you could go out the other side, means even if the whole purpose, my pnimis hakavona, is to go through, but since I daven goes into that category, going into daven, and then I'm going the other side. And this is how the Ben Ish Chai passes also. Now the makar of it, I found, is kind of in the Rishonim. The Kol boy, which passes the makar from both of them, the Kol boy in Simi Yitzai writes clearly, it's very interesting as the Shem Zalman and the Archamayach, nobody realized, but the Kol boy writes, Hoi lebaisek neses shnei psochim. A shul which has two doors, lo yaseni shortcut, you can't come in one door, you're going to the other door, only if you sit down and say a pasik, or you yishu ma'at. If you stay over there a little bit, that should be fine. Or you say for a child, you say a pasik. So the Kol boy writes clearly, like the Mishnah Berurah, and not like the Archamayach, that going into a shul and making a shortcut, if you sit down and saying a pasik, it's not a problem. So first of all, now at least we know the meaning of a lot of people, which when they're going to shul and want to go other side, they sit down and say a pasik. Yesh lem I mean nismoichi, because pashas shechinurich hazoi, and we have basically the Kol boy, einer from the Rishonim writes clearly like that, and the Mishnah Berurah passes like that, and the Ben Ish Chai passes that. It's not an issue. So b'mayla, when a person comes in over here, he wants to, first thing, the best thing will be sit down, say a pasuk. By the way, the andere Chronim wants to say it doesn't have, it has to be sitting. If you say a pasuk, if you're coming into davening, you daven all davening, it's also still you're coming into daven something. Say a pasuk even if you don't sit down. Come even. So avada chagzim by tzaddikim by tamid chumam I saw they used to sit down saying a pasuk, and that should be fine. V'yisha pashas means chavegzes epis mashazan. Yeah, lechoyer. So that's the first reason. So we're going in Tzamara Mishnah we could rely going through, which is stop and sit down and say a pasuk. But we have another heter also, which the Pri Megudim writes when it comes to this halucha. The Pri Megudim says if a person it says interesting. The Pri Megudim says efshe. Pri wants to be mechadash. A person who goes for dvar mitzvah, he has the right to go into one side and go into the other side. He wants to shorten his way. Since he goes to dvar mitzvah, he says ve'efshe. If he goes to dvar mitzvah, it's not a problem to make a kampadra, to go making shortcuts. So therefore, zog the Pri Megudim, and but it's interesting. The Ben Ish Chai, the efsher, the Friedrich Rebbe says, man tatens efsher is bamira pashtas. So the Ben Ish Chai already, he writes it clearly. If you go to dvar mitzvah, that means he takes the efsher from the Pri Megudim. He paskas if you go to dvar mitzvah, so then it's not a problem. So of course, if a person goes in and wants to go to the mikveh, so a Wort von Tzadikim, Mikveh ist nicht laut kein Mitzvah. Aber was Mikveh kann bringen, kann ich kein Mitzvah bringen. So come even, das heißt, das war Mitzvah, Zorich Mitzvah. So if a person wants to go down, why do I want to bring it? Because like Kapunam, Fratig, a person goes down, Zorich Mitzvah, the Ben Ish Chai passing Zorich Mitzvah, going to the Mikveh is a Zorich Mitzvah, and it's not a problem. But the what?
The Rambam writes the Dvar Mitzvah also, and then Halacha Ches.
Yeah, the Rambam says something else. The Rambam says, the Dvar Mitzvah, you're going into doing a mitzvah in shul. But not, you're going for a Dvar Mitzvah. And this is what the Bir Alucha, disagrees with the Pri Megudim. The Bir Alucha, which is a Michael going through, if you say a posig, zug the Mishnah Berurah, what the Pri Megudim says, if you're going to Dvar Mitzvah, you can make a shortcut. Zug the Bir Alucha, no, I'm not masking to it. The Bir Alucha says clearly, as when the Rambam is also is user with the Rambam nicht karai says mamish down diek for the Rambam nicht karama the Rambam meier is a knisle by knisle is hoy bishvil dvar mitzvah I'm going to shoot for the dvar mitzvah but the Pri Megudim wants to say if I'm going to a dvar mitzvah I want to go through the shul that's nicht karai from the Rambam in my mind the Mishnah Berurah is machbar of such a case and the final heter which is do so again the best thing will be if you sit down or you say a pasuk that's the easiest heter. Second of all, you don't even need. We have a Pri Megudim Efsher, we have a Ben Ish Chai which says, if you're going to the mitzvah, I feel this is the mitzvah. But the last thing I'm going to come, which I saw a lot of people thought, it's not a kapandaria. It's not making a shortcut to going to the mikveh. It's called the etzem zach going to the mikveh is a part of the davening. I'm coming into shul to daven. Now, mikveh is a part of the achona from davening. What is your person coming into shul and he has the coach room is on that side or the coffee room is on that side? Can he go into the shul and go into the coffee room to drink a coffee and daven? That's not kapandaria. It's not a shortcut. I'm coming into shul to daven. And apart from davening is, I drink a coffee, I hang up my coat in the coach room, I go to mikveh. That's a part of tefillah. So halb zu begraben schon die ganze Sache, as we should have a problem. That's a part of going davening. Oh, Freitag Erev Shabbos, das habe ich gewollt sagen. Freitag Erev Shabbos habe ich nicht der Heter. Therefore, ich komme gut zu der andere Heter, als es war Mitzvah, in, wir sollen sagen, a Pusik. Was du, was wir können sagen, noch an der Kida, was beizem die ganze Zeit sich schon. Ich komme nicht du, weil ich mache keine andere. Ich kann nicht umkommen ergens anders. I cannot go through, there's no way how to go to the mikveh without going into shul. That is also a sib of matrasan. The Rambam in all the Gemara says, I want to make a shortcut. I can go around. Then, okay, you can go around. That's something else. Over here, I have no choice. I have to go to mikveh only through going to the shul. So, now, Mias Hashem wants, the town will open the outside door, and the regular thing will be Bekur of Mamash that you should be able to go in outside. Then, coming into shul, then we're going into this dilemma, and then we're going to use Stam Shabbat, a regular day, you don't need any heter. Because again, das heißt going to davening. Friday, when you're going into shul, mikveh, only to going to mikveh, that's already, then you'll have to sit down and say a posik. That's what it is. So let me just sum it up. As long as we don't have an open door, you have to come through there, there's no problem at all. You don't even say a posik. Kemivens I begin to say a posik, just sit down a minute, say a posik, macht man seine alle shittas Rama, mit alle Sachen. But again, even if the Rama, I would say, the other Hatayra comes here. Even if you don't want to rely on the Prima Gudmal, the Bar Mitzvah. Even if you want to be Madaik or Samaich, that basically going through and saying a posik doesn't help. But at least you have no choice. Again, when we're talking about when we don't have choice, since you have no choice, and since there's a parting of going davening, it's not a problem. Once the door is going to be open, then we're coming like this. If Shabbos, weekdays, we're coming to davening, it's not a problem. Because you come, that's chaylik for davening. Friday, if you want to come this way, then you should say a posik and say something in order to be taka. Then it goes into this shala. And although we have the Torah mitzvah, the Prima Gudim and the Ben Ishchai, but a kapuna v'balt sinishburi the mishbri doesn't agree with that. It is kedai to say a posik, say a word, say a kapitel, and then we solve the problem as it is.